All right. Hi, Noble family. Welcome to Parent Leadership Series number 2. Before we start, um, we're going to give directions for translation services for our families who prefer Spanish. If you're going to be listening in English, you won't need to do anything. You may see a globe icon pop up as you see in our slide here, but you don't need to click anything. We're going to give our families a few seconds to switch to Spanish if they prefer. So before we continue, I wanted to introduce the team that has worked hard to make sure this event happens. This is the Noble's Government and Community Affairs team. My name is Ellen Moyani. You can see me here. And we support the campuses that you can see underneath of all of our pictures. Our team supports parents to ensure they have access to opportunities as they arise. Some of you we know, some of you are new, welcome. Regardless, you can expect us to reach out in the near future to ensure we get to know each and every one of you in order to best support. Given that we are on Zoom, we have a few norms. If you have a question, please type it in the chat box. For the whole group session, we do have the chat open, but the message will go directly to a Noble staff member, and other parents won't see it at this point. Our small group sessions will be more interactive. You should be on mute to minimize distractions, and in breakout rooms, you may have the option to message everyone or to come off of mute. We just want to make sure there are safety measures in place. You might have heard about Zoom bombings in the news, and so we have this in place tonight to ensure everyone has a great experience. We ask that you make sure to treat everyone today with respect and kindness. Everyone here tonight is here because we love our students, we love our parents, and we know we won't be able to get through this time unless we get through it together. We ask that any questions or comments are given with that spirit in mind. And finally, this is your time to build community. As a parent or guardian, this is your space and it's your place to ask questions and build relationships, even though we are virtual. We want this to be meaningful for you. It is an understatement that this time in our city and our country is hard. We know that through hard times, it's always best when we get through it together. With that in mind, this night was created because we've heard from you. Despite a pandemic, an economic crisis, and an insurrection in our nation's capital, you are concerned first and foremost about your kids and about their future. Just because things are happening doesn't change the fact that your kids are your kids now. And so with that in mind, we have 4 purposes for today's event. We'll hear an update from Noble's CEO. We'll get into a panel where we'll receive best practices, tips, and mindsets to support you with your child's virtual learning. In small groups, we'll discuss with Noble staff members 3 things that you should focus on for the remainder of the year as a parent. And then finally, we'll give your feedback on Noble's diversity, equity, and inclusion priority with our Chief Equity Officer, Jennifer Reed Davis. And so now I will introduce our CEO of Noble, Constance Jones, who will talk about the latest updates at Noble.
Thank you so much, Ellen, for your thoughtful words. And hello to our Noble family, and welcome to the second Parent Leadership Series event of the 2020-2021 school year. My name is Constance Jones, and I have the privilege to serve as Noble CEO. I want to start by expressing my gratitude that you are joining us on this evening. I know many of you are juggling so many different priorities right now, and I thank you for your time and partnership tonight. Before I begin, I want to acknowledge the history we witnessed today. A few hours ago, we saw the first female Vice President of the United States sworn in, the first Black woman, and the first South Asian woman to serve as Vice President. the first graduate of a historically Black college and university, Howard University, to serve as vice president. And while I myself am a proud member of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, I am pleased to see our new vice president represent the Divine Nine as a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. At Noble, when we talk about our vision, ensuring that all students have equitable and positive school experiences that equip them to succeed on the path of their choice, it's not something we say just because it sounds good. This is what it looks like. This is what we aspire for all of our students to become. I'm so proud that our country elected a Black woman, and I am hopeful that this new administration will lead this country with a level of compassion, humanity, and common sense that recently seemed to be all too rare. This new administration is taking office during trying times. Coronavirus cases in the United States and here in Chicago are running rampant, and the ripples of that destruction are touching all of our lives. We saw white supremacists and extremists attack the US Capitol carrying symbols of hate. I cannot reasonably expect that everything will be better overnight, but I remain hopeful. Hopeful that vaccines are on the way. Hopeful that COVID testing will expand and improve. Hopeful that funding from the federal government will arrive to support schools and our community during this challenging time. In short, despite everything going on in our city and our country, I am hopeful that there are better days ahead. And that hope doesn't just derive from a change in leadership. It comes from the work I am privileged to do each day in support of your students and the people I work alongside, our teachers and principals and staff and families. That hope comes from you. Despite all the uncertainty and turmoil, I know that your primary concern and ours remains the success of your students. Keeping my focus on that drives my hope. And their dreams aren't smaller because of a pandemic. Their hopes and futures are just as bright, even in the midst of a political darkness. I have personally been so inspired by our students, their resilience and determination to make the best out of a very difficult time. So tonight, we wanted to create a space for parents to connect, to share amongst each other, and to listen to one another. First, we'll have a panel discussion featuring parents and other leaders from across Noble sharing how they are responding to the challenges of remote learning. I thank them in advance for their honesty, their expertise, and their humility. Then we'll have breakout rooms where parents can share directly with one another, focus on supporting upperclassmen or underclassmen students, as we know that can sometimes feel very different as a parent. And then after the breakout rooms, we'll come back together for an update on our anti-racism work. You'll hear from Noble's Chief Equity Officer, Jennifer Davis, who will share our commitment at Noble. And finally, Dr. Aide Acosta will share an update on DACA and the support we're providing at Noble to make sure our students and families can take advantage of the latest changes. Before I turn it over to our panel, I just want to say one final time, thank you. I am so inspired by the fact that there are so many of you that took the time out of your day to be here tonight. We are only able to do this work because of you, because of the trust you put in us to serve your children well. And we do not take that lightly, and we'll never lose sight of it. So now I'll kick it back to Ellen to introduce the panel.
Thank you so much, CJ. We're going to transition, as CJ mentioned, to our panel. We're holding this panel to discuss remote learning journeys, shared experiences, and successes. The chat box will be off during this time, but we are using the questions that you submitted when you registered. However, please use the Zoom reactions to express your support, your love, or your feelings. So if you're ready, show our panel some love by clicking one of those reactions. Our moderator for today is Tony Briscoe. Not only is Tony the Director of Information Technology for Noble, but he's also a Musician parent. We have Miss Cynthia Clark, who is a 12th grade parent at Gary Comer College Prep. Jamil Williams, who teaches algebra at Gary Comer College Prep. Miss Sophia Mendez, who is a 10th grade parent at Rauner. And Zarek Mays, who is a social work lead at Rauner. I also want to note that a member of our team, Padeline Beals, may be popping in to ensure we're on time. So with that, I will hand over the virtual mic to Briscoe.
Greetings, 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 everyone. I hope you can hear me very clearly. It is an honor to be here tonight. Thank you, Ellen, for the wonderful introductions for our entire panel. It is awesome to be here and amazing. I am not just a proud employee of Noble, I am a proud Noble parent of a 10th grader at Musician College Prep. That's no shade to the other schools, but I'm gonna brag on my MCP family real quick. It has been a great transition for our daughter into high school, coming from a homeschooling environment, and I'm grateful for that. And so, hey, let's not waste any time. Let's go ahead and get this right off the bat. So I would like to start with Miss Sophia Mendez, who is the parent of a sophomore at Rauner College Prep. Miss Mendez, welcome to the panel. And I'd like to ask you, seeing that we are both proud parents of 10th graders, what has the journey been like for you since we've had to start remote learning?
Thank you. Thank you for having me here tonight. I am also a proud parent of Musician alum twin daughters. So shout out to Musician too.
Oh,
Uh, yeah, and they're at University of Champaign-Urbana. For my 10th grader, it was at first it was a little rocky start because we transferred to Rauner just this fall. So, he didn't know what he was going to be expecting. However, he knew what his sisters, the journey they had taken on. And he was really committed to ensuring that he was college ready. And so, pandemic or no pandemic, our family takes college very seriously. And so, we decided that this was the best route for us. So, quickly, we started to ensure that, we read all our emails, we were ready to go. He and I, along with his 14-year-old brother, who's an eighth grader, created a little space for them. Like we called it their office, right? And so ensuring that they went on and put on stickers and things that they felt were part of what they wanted to express themselves. And so to me, that's important. The other thing is I feel very blessed that I'm able to work from home. And so I here at home am the dean of students, the classroom monitor, the lunch lady that they sit with that eats sandwiches. And we're like, okay, let's go to Power School and check those grades, and have a little competition between brothers is always good. So our journey has been great in terms of Rauner. Mr. Diaz was our first person that welcomed us, and he quickly got back to us. We signed on, and anything that I needed, like he was my go-to person.
awesome, amazing. I do want to piggyback because I saw a lot of parents nodding when you talked about the many roles and hats that you have to play. So even as a parent, like what's been challenging for you that you're still navigating your way through in that regard to work, as well as being that not just the digital parent, now you're the digital disciplinarian, you're the digital nurse, like all of this. Like what tips can you share with other parents that can kind of help them and encourage them as well?
So for me, I get up way before anybody gets up to get that cup of coffee, right? So I do my stretching. I thank, the higher spirits for being alive, and then I have that cup of coffee, and then when they get ready to sign on, I have had that moment for myself. We try to have some rules, so I let them know ahead of time when I have like tons of back-to-back Zoom meetings, because there is those like 10 to 20 minutes where the boys are just going at one another and the sound level of noise is ridiculous. But I have learned that within, like, if I count 10 to 20 minutes, then it goes back to quiet. So I would just say be very patient. We're all going through this. Like I told them, there is no book on how to navigate this pandemic. We're creating it as we go. And so just being patient and being forgiving to one another, including ourselves as parents. None of this is perfect.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you for sharing that. We also have a Gary Comer College Prep instructor with us, Mr. Jamel Williams. How you doing, Mr. Williams?
I'm doing great. How are you, Mr. Briscoe?
Outstanding. So you're coming off an amazing championship wrestling year prior to COVID. And I just want to know, like, for you, still being an algebra teacher inside of the classroom, how have you kept your energy up? Because since I've known you, you've always been energetic. And then how have you also translated that energy down to your students?
It's been a tough adjustment. During my time at Noble, I've always coached a sport in every season, whether it be football, wrestling, or softball. So that adjustment has been a tough one, just in terms of like getting a new routine together. But I think just like what Sophia said earlier, I think that routine is super important to get yourself in a new mindset around your new like reality of the workday. So like for me, I think, making sure that I get like my exercise in or like, leave the house for a little bit just to kind of clear my mind and get myself ready for kids every morning is what keeps me going. But, at the end of the day, like we're grinding through this just like, from day one. And like when we are our authentic selves in front of kids, I think they still see that. So I'm still able to like be myself and, still bring out some of those elements of my coaching experience back in the classroom as well, even though, it's just very different.
Yeah, cool. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you for sharing that. We also have Miss Clark here, who is the parent of a 12th grader at Gary Comer College Prep, Catamounts Roar. Miss Clark, I'd like to ask you have a senior. So what has been your experience with remote learning, and especially as a parent who's getting ready to prepare her child for post-high school life and college? Please share with us.
Unmute. Okay, I'm unmuted. It's been interesting. My daughter, I homeschooled her, so she was used to working remotely before going to high school, before going to Gary Comer. But then she got used to having peers. And so it's been hard on her coming out of the actual school. And so she misses her friends, and but she's still grinding, you know what I mean?
Yes.
So she's not, now that she doesn't have to go to school, she's not close to the school right now. She's hanging out with her dad, who's in Markham, which is a suburb here. She's been hanging out with him, so she's a daddy's girl, so that helps. And she has been really, you got to deal with senioritis, you got to deal with COVID, you know what I mean? You got to deal with the e-learning situation. So it's a lot at one time. So what she did was she decided to focus on one thing, that and that was applying for these scholarships. It's cool to get into school, but how the freak are you going to pay for it? It's expensive nowadays. So she started really focusing on the senior college program. I forgot what it's called. But that girl did everything that she was supposed to do, everything that her dad, all the things that the parents were supposed to do. She was on our butts. Do you hear me? And as a result, do you know this chick got a full ride to Washington University?
Let's clap that up, parents. Let's clap. We got to clap that up. That's awesome. That's amazing.
So her financial letter for her first year, she got them for $85,000. Okay, check this out. They're paying for tuition, fees, room, board, technology, all her computers, her travel, and her clothes. So she's going to be wash you down. And so I'm really excited about Comer. You know, one thing I noticed when I first took her there, they said, hey, when she matriculates, when your child matriculates from Comer, we're going to follow her. So I'm looking forward to that because, you know, I like being involved. So she's doing good. So while that was going on, and I'll be quick, while that was going on, the senioritis kicked in. So yeah, she was kicking butt on the scholarship stuff, but them grades was looking like, But now she's focused on that and they're coming up. So it's a work in progress, man. It's a work in progress.
Thank you for sharing, Ms. Clark. And we are really excited about the news to Washington U. And we are just grateful that you shared all of that, what comes with that, senioritis and everything else. You know, the parents, again, are nodding their heads like we understand what's going on, but we're really grateful for that. And I'm sure our director of college counseling, when she heard about the scholarship, she just was super excited. So we're definitely grateful. And thank you for sharing that. I want to pivot a little bit because we have, sometimes they're just considered the unsung heroes, and those are our social workers. So Mr. Mays, I would like to ask you what support has been like for you in this digital space, and what is something you can share with parents tonight in regard to tools relating to understanding their children and how they're really working to cope in this digital space that we're in right now.
Thank you, Mr. Briscoe. That is, of course, a loaded question, but I'm going to do my best to answer it. So first, I think when we talk about supporting students in a pandemic, one of the first things that I had to do for myself is I had to redefine support. Usually, you know, used to being there one-on-one, in person, face-to-face, sitting in the office, on the, you know, at my desk, my student is on our little couch. I had to redefine what support meant. Because when we were thrown into the pandemic, all that went out the window, as we know. So my aim as a social worker was to not lose this sense of connection and this sense of community that we had built and that I had built with a lot of my students. So what that meant for me in practice is I had to exhaust any resource, whatever resource I could, in terms of ensuring that my students felt valued, they felt seen, they felt heard, even though now they're doing school from home. So that means if I have to communicate by text messages, I do that. If I have to communicate after hours, I do that. If I have to wake up early to communicate, I do that. I found that whatever it was that my students needed, that became my mission to respond to. So it's no longer about, you know, me being able to do it in the comfort of my office. It now becomes the world is my stage, the world is our office, and however I can connect to you, that's what I'm going to do, because you matter and your education, your success matters. So I had to kind of put my preferences on the back burner and begin to, again, redefine whatever it takes. That becomes my mission, whatever it takes. That's how I'm going to do this. There was another portion to your question.
No, that was good. And I was going to say, as we talked about parents having to transform their entire structure of their day to be in meetings while kids are maybe yelling in the background at each other, I think for them to hear you say you had to, like, this is no longer my comfort zone. I have to be whatever these students need me to be. And I think they appreciate hearing you making that transition as an educator and as a social worker to really welcome them into your space and just be flexible during this time. And I think the parents are really appreciative to hear that. Ms. Mendez, if I can ask you a question, my question to you would be, what kind of fears have your children shared with you during this time that has made them a bit uneasy that you've been able to help coach them through?
Sure, that's a great question. So both of my boys are swimmer and water polo players. And so with this pandemic, all of those sports, you know, are out the window. And so for us, the key thing was routine. So it was like the carrot that I dangle for the boys, like, don't get good grades, you don't go swimming. Don't, you know, do the things that you got to do, your house chores, you don't go swimming. So I had to like talk to them, and my 14-year-old said it well. He's like, Mom, it's like we have to mourn what we don't have, then we have to accept it and then find something else to do, right? And so it's being able to be open with your child to also talk about your own feelings, because last year around March, I was really nervous. I was not planning to be at home with four teenagers, right? My twin daughters that had gone to Urbana were back, and then my 14-year-old and my 16-year-old. I just wasn't ready. Like I told them, that's not what I signed up. I signed up for two of you to be gone. And now I have all four. And so we would, talk about, so as a parent, you have to be open and frank and show that, you also have fears and you don't know what's not known. And then what are those new opportunities? So we talked about what can you now discover, because before you were 5 days in the pool and 2 days at games. So what else is there now that we can't do sports? So Omar, who is the 10th grader, signed up for After School Matters and is now doing art. And he's, in a leadership role now. Like he didn't know that about himself previously. So it's just all those new opportunities. He's opened up himself to take honor classes. He's challenged himself. He started in just the chemistry class and he was getting good grades. And I said, hey, why don't you try to get into that honors? He emailed his teacher and now he's, challenging himself. So I said, now is the time. Like, just because we're in a pandemic does not mean that we excuse you from not getting those good grades, because Miss Clark just talked about her daughter getting a full ride. And that's only possible with, the grades and the other opportunities. So I said to Omar, you have to find them. They're not going to come knocking down your door. So sign up for After School Matters, sign up for other virtual things. Like, because sports is not here, the word is flexible, right? Because life is a constant change. So
Yes.
being flexible and adaptable.
Absolutely. Thank you. I have to repeat what you said. Your 14-year-old said, mourn what we don't have, accept it, and find something else to do. That is very powerful, very strong, and a very wise 14-year-old statement. I thought that was genius. Mr. Williams, have you had, and I want to phrase this question very careful because I don't want CJ calling me. What have been some of the challenges that have been hard to explain to parents when it comes to how to help their students navigate e-learning?
Well, I live in freshman land. So in 8 years at Comer, I've taught only freshmen, and 10 years of teaching only freshmen. So we're dealing with students who's never even been to our campus before, and let alone like not even know each other. And the transition for them has just been very, it's been a lot. But I'm really grateful that we have such an incredible freshman team that I love to go to work with to make sure that our freshmen adjust really well. And I would say like their adjustments at high school, I think has been pretty good, all things considered. I think the most important thing that I have seen in terms of students who've transitioned a little bit easier is the communication aspect, in terms of being proactive, reaching out, whether it's academic or things going on at home. The more families, kind of reach out and keep teachers in the know, the better we're able to like make those adjustments and support. And all of us are going through it, and like we're living through the adjustments and trying to model that for our students. So, I've seen that at the end of the day, still, when it comes down to it, like when our students are diving into the work and they're asking questions and they're just being proactive, the results are the same. Like, and I'm very pleased to see that as I'm going through, and I'm trying to figure out what's the next topic to cover and what we have to continue to support on. But I am glad that piece is huge, because students are learning, and the students who are putting in the work are seeing the benefits from it. And then I think the other piece is just like, some of my best moments this year have been in like office hours where we're not even talking about, the classwork, where students, have that second, person to go through and just like get to know us a little bit better, and allowing for us to kind of just be our true selves and get to know them more. And I think that that's also paid huge dividends in the class in terms of the teacher student relationship, and making sure they kind of feel like ownership into the Comer community as well as the Noble community, as they adjust in high school, unfortunately, this year.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Williams. Ms. Clark, I'm going to bring you back front and center here because I want to ask you, at times when your child, when your daughter didn't really want to push herself, and I'm talking about at the height of making that transition from homeschooling to being inside of a school and then being separated from her peers. How did you help her get through that process? Because a lot of our students, what I think we've learned is that FaceTime is no longer enough with their friends, right? Like it's great, but it's not enough. How have you been able to help her navigate that space?
Unmute. Okay. So freshman year was kind of easy. Naja was homeschooled. She didn't test in, or she didn't get tested. So they didn't know if she was an honor student or what when she came in. So she was like at the base level of the different classes. I tell people that Comer, or parents, that Comer could be like two different high schools, depending on if you go in as like an honor student or if you go in as a regular student. So she went in as a regular student, and it was like, I was like, ooh, I don't know if she will be able to learn, because it was wild. It was buck wild kind of sometimes, in my opinion. But that sophomore year, after they realized that, okay, she could be an honor student, then they put her in these different classes, right? So Mr. Mosley's, was it AP class with the Black History? You talking about stretching somebody? That class stretched the freak out of Naja and her daddy. Naja came was so stressed at one point that her dad was like, you're not the daughter I knew, that I know. If you're going to be like this, you could just drop that class. I was like, oh, she ain't dropping shit. Like, excuse me, she ain't dropping nothing. And so she stuck with that class. By the end of the class, he had them do this. Well, no, let me tell you this one thing. We weren't, you know how you go to the different classes when you're not in COVID to pick up the grades, and you talk to your client, you talk to the teacher or whatever. And so one of the things that he taught them was about this African wealthy man called Mansa Musa. So Naja's grades looked good. We showed him her grades when we were going around. He was like, Naja, if you keep this up, you're going to have a Bill Gates bank account. Naja looked at him and said, no, I want a Mansa Musa bank account. What does that mean? That means that what Mr. Mosley was teaching was sinking in. That wasn't scripted. That just came from her doing the class. At the end of the class, they did a project. Mm-hmm. She still has that project. And it was a group project. And I remember her saying that she was talking to one of her classmates, and they were saying, well, we could just do this. She said, look, I'm an overachiever, and we're going to do this. And I think they came in number 1 or number 2 in their project.
Wow. This is our 5-minute warning panel.
So anyway, Mr. Mosley stretched her. That's all I got to say. Sorry for my
It was raw and it was natural, so everybody understood. It's all good.
Yeah, but he stretched that girl. He stretched her daddy, because I was like, she ain't dropping nothing, and it turned out good. I respect that man for that. Okay, so anyway, that's all.
Excellent. Well, thank you, and I'm sure his team will definitely share those sentiments. I'd like to bring Mr. Mays back up front and center. as we near our time, I want to ask you, what are ways you can help empower parents to empower their own students?
So the way that I would address that particular issue, the issue of empowerment, is first, I believe that there is a need, especially in our climate, for all of us to be validated in our humanity, to be validated in the diversity of our experiences, because they can be so dehumanizing. So first, in empowering our students, my initial aim would be to empower our parents. Let's identify your strengths. Let's talk about how you have survived this traumatic season, this traumatic moment that we're in. Let's not discount that. It's not a small thing. It's not everyone can do it. We see that. We see the numbers rising. So I would first empower them by helping them to identify. Let's find that one thing that you're good at. It may not be a lot. It may be just one. You survived yesterday. Now let's talk about how we can use that same language, that same skill, and help our students to see and to become self-aware of, just as you survived yesterday, so can they. And they actually already have.
Wow. Thank you for that. All right. As we close, I'm going to just ask everyone one question to give me one word. Ms. Clark, you heard me, one word only. Give me one word that will sum up so far this year for your families. Mr. Mays, I'll start with you. Go.
Pivot.
Pivot. Ms. Clark.
I'm going with pivot.
Pivot 2. Ms. Mendez.
Adaptable.
Adaptable. Mr. Williams.
Persevere.
Persevere. Outstanding. Pivot, adaptable, persevere. And I will just add one word on my own before we transition. Hope. That's what I see at Noble. That's what I believe in. Panel, thank you for your time. God bless you.
Thank you.
And now over to Miss Patty Lynn Bills.
Thank you so much. I want to give a huge thanks to our panelists today for sharing their experiences and expertise. We hope that you were able to get some useful information and tips from our panel today. It is amazing how much we can learn from one another just by sharing our experiences. This is the type of environment that we want to foster for our parents. This type of sharing happens at our PAC meetings monthly. If you haven't had a chance to do so already, connect with your organizer to get that PAC meeting information so that you can attend the next one. And we can connect you with resources for your student and for yourself. Now let's move forward in our evening with a deeper dive into more specific information for your students, depending on their grade level. In room 1, 6th, 7th, and 8th, we have Ms. Ina Briggs, Dean of Instruction at Gary Comer Middle School. In room 2, we have 9th and 10th grade with Lisa Nicoli, Dean of Students at Noble Street College Prep, and Stacy Robinson, Social Worker at Mushin College Prep. In room 3, 11th and 12th grade, we have Sarah McCallum, Noble's Director of College Counseling, and Laura Balsowich, 12th grade Dean at UIC College Prep. Each room will discuss the top 3 focus points for parents according to grade level. Parents will have an opportunity to come off of mute and ask questions after the presentation. And just a friendly reminder that we sent these to you in your email. All breakout rooms will have an interpreter and will be recorded. After the breakout rooms conclude, we will break into our DEI discussion with Jennifer Reed Davis and D. Nigel Green. Enjoy and see you soon.
Welcome back, everyone. I hope you all had a great experience in your breakout rooms and that all your questions were answered. If for whatever reason you still have questions, please add them to the survey or reach out directly to your community organizers. Now, in continuing with providing parents the utmost support we can as a network, we understand that there is work to do in order to ensure equity in the process. Noble has done work to identify and begin to address many of the social inequities that can negatively impact the student experience. With the most current information available, here today is Ms. Jennifer Reed Davis, Noble's Chief Equity Officer, and D. Nigel Green, Noble's Director of Equality, Inclusion, and Diversity, to provide an update on diversity efforts for the entire network.
Thank you so much. We appreciate it. Good evening, noble parents and families and staff that are here. We are so excited to be able to spend just a few minutes with you on a historic day to talk about Noble's work around equity. I do want to start off by saying to all of our parents, thank you. Thank you for choosing Noble. Thank you for entrusting us with your most precious, valuable, which is your child. And we know that you chose Noble because you expect for us to make good on a promise to each of you, that we will do right by you and your families, that we will provide you all with an excellent education, and that we will make sure that your child has access to the best college education one can find. And so we are here today, myself and my partner, Mr. D. Nigel Green, as former staff administrators, campus administrators, and now working at our network office to ensure that your child is having the best experience possible. Oftentimes, as parents, you see all of the great things that Noble is doing. And we are here to actually share some things that we're not that great at, but that we plan to get better at. And so we thank you in advance for your patience and your grace and your kindness. And we look forward to continuing this journey and learning together. As Ludiel alluded to at the beginning, my name is Jennifer Reed Davis. I am Noble's Chief Equity Officer. I come to you I've been here for 10 years at Noble. I used to be the principal at Rauner College Prep and at DRW College Prep. My partner in this amazing work is Mr. D. Nigel Green. He serves now as our Director of Equity, Inclusion, and Diversity. And he also worked at a campus. He served for over a decade at Mushin College Prep, most recently as their assistant principal. Our team together has been charged with continuing and accelerating Noble's efforts to ensure that we are a more diverse, inclusive, and equitable organization for all of our families that we serve here in Chicago. This year, we have several priorities, but the priority that I'm going to talk about the most this evening is around our work as an anti-racist organization. Shortly after George Floyd's death in June, Noble, along with the rest of the country and the rest of the world, was shaken to our knees and a reckoning was happening. Our CEO, CJ, announced to all of our Noble communities in June that Black lives do matter. And they not only matter in our city and our country, but they also matter here at Noble. In August, our equity team came together to decide how are we going to take the work that we've already done at Noble around diversity, equity, and inclusion to the next level, because we're not yet satisfied and we have so much more to go. Our CEO, CJ, asked and charged us to become an anti-racist organization, which is a very high bar. We know that historically, our nation's school systems was not designed to serve the poor or to serve children who may come from more disadvantaged neighborhoods. And yet, we are making a stake in the ground and doing the work to become an anti-racist organization. This is what the late Representative John Lewis would call getting in good trouble. So we're going to kind of talk through what does phase one look like. I want to just acknowledge that the work that has to be done to truly make Noble an anti-racist organization is a long one, years of work, but we cannot wait on that. We have to get started right away. And this is what phase one will look like.
So before I jump in, I just want to say it's always an honor to be in the space with our families, whether that be virtual or in the real world. So I'm honored to share space with you all and happy to be in community with you. In just a few moments, we're going to introduce you to Noble's anti-racism commitment statement, which will be broken up over a few slides. Prior to that, we feel it's important for us all to come together to situate ourselves in some of the language that we'll see shortly. First, you'll see the term anti-Black within the statement. When we say anti-Black, we mean systemically marginalizing Black people, their value, culture, and issues. Anti-Blackness has a history of being overt in its ways and methods. Our country has a history of intentionally and strategically casting its Black community members to the bottom and to its furthest margins of society, and we must acknowledge that fact. We know that Noble's predominant community consists of both Black and Brown families and students. By overtly naming anti-Blackness, we are not in any way minimizing or diminishing Brown people, values, culture, or issues. We must be inclusive of all of our people, and we must also tell the truth of the specific treatment of Blackness within this nation, and thus the Noble community. Moving along, you'll see a collective phrase that includes assimilationist, patriarchal, white supremacist, and anti-Black. We use this collection of oppression to name the roots and the fruits born of racism specifically. To be certain, the statement you will soon view is an anti-racism commitment, and we were intentional on staying laser focused to that end. Other forms of oppression absolutely do exist, and Noble remains dedicated to combating those forms through our commitment to and our stated core value of diversity, equity, and inclusion. And we must be clear that anti-racism is not the same as simply equity, and it's not the same as simply diversity or inclusion. They are all not one and the same. Anti-racism is a specific and intentional high bar focused on the outcomes of people based on race. So these words are strong, and some may feel uncomfortable, but our stance against racism must be strong and unapologetic. So we are committed to naming the things that are true, especially when they make us uncomfortable, because we see that as an act of reconciliation, of healing, and of hope. Lastly, we'll reference the redistribution of power necessary to becoming an anti-racist organization. We must be intentionally inclusive across lines of difference and powers from the onset and at critical points of decision making. We know that power in our society is unequally distributed along various lines of either maleness or whiteness or straightness or wealth, etc. So then we at Noble have to be intentional in our choices to redistribute that power to shape and inform decisions. And in this, we must decenter whiteness. This does not mean that white people don't have a voice and should go silent in our spaces. It's actually the opposite. The fact is that everyone in our community should always be ready, willing, and able to contribute to the best of their ability. We need that from everyone. And we should also recognize that quality allyship is the heart of any and every necessary change. It does, however, mean that we can't allow white voices to speak on behalf of people of color, their voices, and their experiences. It means we should no longer see whiteness as the normative or the bar that we should aspire to be like or become. Nor should whiteness serve as the hero in the story. Now, as leaders, this does not mean that every decision that will be made will be a democratic one, and our people should not expect that of our leaders. We do see leadership as service, and we see it as responsibility. And good leaders switch between traditional and equity models all the time. As an organization, our goal when it comes to power and decision-making is to listen to the folks we impact, especially our parents and students. It needs to live in the end. There are times when we need to be efficient, and there are more times that we'll need to be intentional by design. Equity is in that end. And we know this is messy work, and we'll continue to check how we wield power, how we control and navigate spaces, and whose voices we're centering in these spaces.
Next, we're going to take some time to actually allow you to read the commitment itself. I am going to read the 2 slides that have the statement there, and then you'll see some bullet points to follow. The bullet points are designed to really give specificity to our strategies around how we plan to do the work to become anti-racist at Noble. So let's begin. Anti-racism at Noble is the continual process of dismantling the systems or policies at every level of our organization that perpetuate and support racism through assimilationist, patriarchal, white supremacist, and anti-Black culture. Anti-racism means a redistribution of power. where the voices, the experiences, and the brilliance of all of our people, especially our Black and Brown students, alumni, staff, and families, inform and shape our decisions. This means centering the voices and experiences of you, our students and families and communities, and creating culturally relevant schooling that affirms the lived experience and traditions of all who make up our community. Noble is committed to working with our community, accepting our past, and creating a new path forward. Noble acknowledges that its past practices and policies have promoted assimilationist, patriarchal, white supremacist, and anti-Black culture. Noble is committed to using this moment in our nation's history to evaluate past practices that may have harmed the academic, social, and emotional well-being of students, former students, alumni, families, staff, and the communities we serve. Noble is devoted to learning from our past and forging forward to a more just future for all that we serve.
Our team has also outlined 7 commitments that we as an organization and we as individuals must be dedicated to. In the interest of time and to be able to get to questions more rapidly, I won't read them each to you, but you'll see them displayed briefly on this slide and the next slide. We definitely encourage everyone present to check out the website. It was actually placed in the comments. It's also on the bottom of this slide as well, where you can see the Noble Anti-Racism Commitment Statement in its entirety in both English and Spanish.
Let's talk about what's next for all of us. So last week, we shared this commitment statement with all of Noble's staff. Today, we're sharing this with you, our parents. Soon, we will be sharing this with all of our alumni and our students and the board for Noble. Right now, all of our staff are engaged in a survey where they will be able to give feedback on what they believe to be most important when it comes to our work around diversity, equity, and inclusion. At the end of this month, all parents and current students will receive an email to participate in a similar survey where we will be asking you, our parents, for your feedback on what you believe we should be doing next when it comes to DEI at Noble. We want to hear from you. You are our most valuable stakeholder, and without you, we wouldn't exist. So we want to make sure that your voices and your perspectives are at the table from the beginning and throughout our entire process as we work to become a more anti-racist organization. Later on this spring, we will continue to review our policies and practices. Many of our parents, many of you here on the call, have participated in our review of our student code of conduct in the past. And we will be doing a very similar but even more robust process this year to get our parents and families and students input on our student code of conduct and our classroom practices. Also, we will make sure to finalize these decisions. And then, because we are doing all of this in the backdrop of a pandemic, we will make pivots and changes where needed to make sure that safety is still our #1 priority. If you have any questions, you can feel free to ask them in the chat. Patty, can you let us know if we have time? If not, I'm sure that there is a question to our families in our survey that you all would get after today. And Mr. Green and I will be very happy to follow up and answer them.
So the chat was just open. We have about 5 minutes for questions if there are any. Understanding that this is a lot of information. If you don't have any questions at this time, you do have the option of utilizing the survey. But if you do have a question, please feel free to type it in the chat.
Thank you, Patty.
Thank you, Jennifer and Dee, for providing that update. It is so important that we remain inclusive and understanding to the needs of all our Noble families. So here's a quick with a quick update to the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals, or DACA, is Dr. Aide Acosta, Noble's Chief College Officer.
Thank you, Luriel. And thank you, parents, families, for hanging on late tonight, but hopefully you have found all the information useful. Can you go back to the previous slide? I want to underscore something that my colleague Jennifer Reed Davis mentioned earlier, and that we are at Noble committed to ensuring not only that your child and every student that we work with have equitable experiences, but that we create a pathway towards optimal opportunities for your child. And we want all of you to have that same sense of pride, as you heard with Ms. Clark earlier this evening. And again, shout out to her daughter that was admitted to Washington University. So at Noble, we are committed to providing support and guidance towards college access for all our students and families, irrespectively of background, including citizenship status. So with that, I want to share a little bit in terms of updates regarding DACA, with the caveat that today was a monumental moment in our nation's history. Hopefully, we won't have to be talking about DACA in the near future, because we will have a pathway towards citizenship. Go ahead and go to the next slide. So just to give you a brief update, DACA was instituted under the Obama administration. Unfortunately, in 2017, it was rescinded, which meant that no new, and then it went into litigation. So all in all, what happened in the last 3 years is that no new applications were able to be submitted for DACA. That means that our students that graduated in the class of 2018, 2019, 2020, for example, did not have access to the Deferred Action of Childhood Arrivals. But as of December 7th, 2020, DACA was fully reinstated, which meant that the Office of U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services were required to accept new applications, continue to accept renewals, and also advance parole requests. I will only talk about new applications, and then part of that, the reinstatement, is that the filing fee of $495 also continued. So what does this mean? Who is eligible for DACA? Again, this is the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals for students that whose status became undocumented through their experience. And the eligibility for DACA is, you'll see them lined out here. I won't go through all of them, but we'll share these resources so that you can look more into it if this is permanent to you. But all in all is that the student should have arrived to the US before turning age 16 and resided continuously in the US since 2007. Also a student, whether in high school, graduated from a high school, or has obtained a GED. I want to underscore that what I just named, eligibility, doesn't mean I'm giving you legal advice, only the information that is publicly available, but we are more than happy to connect you to the proper organizations that can provide legal guidance. And in order, if this is relevant to you, what happens next then, if your child or any of your family member is eligible, once a eligible recipient applies, it takes 3 to 6 months to process the documents. Go ahead and go to the next slide. And it means that if approved, DACA provides a protected status for 2 years, a 2-year work permit, as well as a social security card. So what is the future of DACA? As I mentioned, historical moment, things could change. For the moment, DACA remains in place in its original form as proposed by former President Obama. But there is always the opportunity to expand DACA and/or immigration reform. So we really hope that that is the future as we move forward as a nation. And with that said, the last point, if you need some resources or support, my team has prepared a link if you guys can drop it on the chat, that would be great, so families can access to it. You could also reach out to myself at any time, or Luis Gonzalez, our Dreamer Supports Manager, and I dropped his email here as well. If you have any questions, need any guidance for your child or for your family member, we are here to help you. And the last thing I will say is that as I started this, college is possible. College is possible for every single one of our students, and our college counseling team at each of our high schools for your high school is ready to talk to your child. Do not hesitate to reach out to them, or to Luis, as I mentioned, or myself. Thank you for the time, and good luck as we continue to navigate our current reality.
Thank you so much, Dr. Acosta, for providing that update on DACA. Before you leave tonight, as we are winding down, please fill out the survey. The link will be in the chat box. If you fill it out, you will be entered in a raffle where we'll select at random 2 people to receive a gift card. We'll also send the link in an email. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. We look forward to seeing you at our next Parent Leadership Series this spring, and at future Parent Advisory Council meetings on your campus soon. Have a great, safe, and wonderful night.